Welcome back to another episode of the Max Term Podcast. Kyle Stitch here alongside James Finch, and today we're getting into playoff preview, I guess. Recording the last day of the regular season, but the playoff matchups are set at this point. Montreal was the final team to officially clinch with their win Wednesday evening, and the feel-good story of the Columbus Blue Jackets came to an end simultaneously. So we appreciate you tuning in. Max Term Podcast available on pretty much all major podcast platforms. On X, our content is available at AFP Analytics. Max Term Podcast also on X, both accounts also on Blue Sky as well. Give us a follow there. And one of the things that we do at AFP Analytics is contract projections. I don't know how many we're going to be referencing in this episode. Maybe a Neil Pionk and an Alex Iafallo when talking about the Jets quickly, but those are available on pin tweet on X, pin post on Blue Sky. And then we'll have off-season official projections out probably month-ish, give or take a little bit, depending on how things go, how mentally drained or not drained I am still from the tax deadline on April 15th, so that's why we haven't been recording for a few weeks, but we're back at it. We should have pretty regular content throughout most of the playoffs and the offseason, hopefully. So we appreciate you listening, tuning in, and right now we're going to kind of recap a little bit where we were at the start of the season, where we are now for playoffs, awards, stuff along those lines, and then look ahead to really diving in a little bit on the playoff matchups and making totally correct, of course, always 100% take it to the bank, don't take it to the bank projections. That's my caveat. Don't take anything you're hearing and bet money on it, because probably the most profitable thing would be to bet the opposite.
I wouldn't say the opposite, but certainly don't. We're not telling you to go put money on any of what we're about to say. I guess to start, there were a few awards that just they kind of happen with the end of the season. They're not voted on. Art Ross, so most points. That's unless something crazy happens tonight, it's going to be Kucherov.
I don't think anything crazy can happen tonight.
I don't think so. Rocket Richard is going to be Draisaitl. And we already do know the Jennings Trophy is awarded to Winnipeg, but really honoring Connor Hellebuck. Goalies need to play at least 25 games to officially be honored with that award. So it's Hellebuck's award.
Because I don't think any backup played 25 games for them.
No, Comrie, it was like 18 or 19, something like that.
So Hellebuck, 2 years in a row, I believe that is for him.
Yes. I want to say it was the first time that was awarded to a goalie individually by himself 2 years in a row.
That I think I saw that as well, but that's a fun one. So at the beginning of the season for Art Ross, we had both picked McDavid, who had a good season, injuries, but I would say maybe a subpar season by his standards a little bit, at least scoring wise. Mid-season Art Ross, we were both thinking Leon Draisaitl. Again, injuries kind of got in the way there. So Nikita Kucherov stepped up to the plate, and he had a phenomenal, close to the season. Just racked up a ton of points, and Tampa went on a nice little run to close out the season. So we'll get more into Tampa in a little bit. The Rocket, we had, I'll start with yours, you had Austin Matthews, injuries, and he also had a subpar season. Mine, I kind of was close on. Actually, but if we're going goals per game played, I might have been right here.
Ovechkin. So if he didn't break his leg,
I probably was right.
Miss a month and a half, good chance he actually would have gotten it.
Although Draisaitl also missed games, to be fair. So
that's true.
But yeah,
it would have been a very respectable pick still.
Yes. So that bold prediction at the beginning of the season, I think that might have been my best prediction. Maybe, I know it wasn't 100% right, but that was a really bold, but also pretty right prediction. So I wanted to take a victory lap early, because I think I'm going to get dragged most of the rest of this episode for bad predictions.
Well, I mean, I don't have a ton of great ones either. So that's a good victory lap to take, though.
The Jennings, we won't talk about our preseason predictions.
Yeah, I wasn't even gonna do that. I don't know why I let you talk me into UPL and Devin Levi, who
Yeah. Well.
was phenomenal in the AHL, but
Yep. Well, things went south in Buffalo, and
yeah,
goaltending was a big reason
we
why.
probably should have seen that coming, but
Eh,
we didn't.
well, it was. I was going bold.
Right.
So let's do who we think are going to win the awards, since we're talking about them. Then we'll get into the playoff matchup. So the awards don't really matter, but they're fun to talk about. This will probably be the only time we talk about them this offseason.
Yep.
Hart Trophy. I'll let you go first because I think I went with a bold prediction here.
So I've got McKinnon. My 2 and 3 would be Kucherov and Mitch Marner.
You've been a big Marner guy for much of the past.
This year, he, I think, was, interestingly enough, probably the most important player for Toronto. And yeah, that'll be really interesting this offseason to see what really happens there as far as his future with the team. But I think he's worthy of votes for sure.
Contract wise, he's probably looking at, I think our midseason was like, 8 by 12.5, 7 by 12.5. He's probably pushing, especially with the market. We've talked about this in a few past episodes as well. He's probably pushing 13 to 14 at this point. I would expect our off-season prediction, our kind of official prediction for him to come in over 13, maybe not quite 14, but I wouldn't be shocked if we're close to that number.
Yep.
So my Hart Trophy, I'm going with Connor Hellebuyck, because I don't think anyone else necessarily put a strong case forward to be a winner except him.
I think I see the argument that he should be the winner.
Goalies don't win it.
Right.
But I don't know. I no disrespect to McKinnon, no disrespect to Kucherov, who I have second. But I just, throughout the season, like, no one was clearly running away with, oh, they're the most important player on their team. Like, McKinnon and Makar have both had really good years. I mean, I think McKinnon drives that, but Makar's there as well. Kucherov had a traditional Kucherov season, kind of quiet, and then suddenly just went on a massive point streak. I don't want to take that away from him, but I also don't know if that's going to get him like most valuable player votes. My third choice is Jack Eichel. I think that he was probably one of the biggest driving players for Vegas, finishing first in their division. So I'm going there, just to be a little bit different as well. With your Marner, I think both are kind of in the same level. Like, are they probably going to finish in the top 3? Neither probably are, but I think both deserve recognition for what they put together.
Absolutely. I agree.
Calder Trophy. This is one that everyone kind of, wouldn't say wrote in pen, but had two names that they thought would be one of the two at the end, and I don't think either of them are winning it.
I assume you're alluding to Celebrini and Michkov.
That's exactly who I'm alluding to.
Yeah. So Lane Hudson, phenomenal year for a rookie defenseman. So we both have him winning it.
Yep.
Our number 2 is the same, Dustin Wolf. So Calgary's new goalie. This one for me, I didn't decide until I guess last night when Montreal made the playoffs. I don't usually love having a team's result impact individual awards, but I was so back and forth between Hudson and Wolf of which one of these guys deserves this that I kind of left it up to who makes the playoffs. If neither of them make the playoffs, I was potentially leaning to Wolf, but it was such a toss-up for me.
I kind of had the same logic. If Calgary had made the playoffs, he would have been my pick. No questions about it. I think if both had missed, I might have still went with Lane Hudson because I had him in my top 3 at the start of the season. So I probably would have tried to make myself look smart again. But But if Dustin Wolf had carried Calgary to a playoff berth, there should have been no question that he was the rookie of the year.
Yeah. Which, interestingly enough, they finished with 94. I think they finished with 94 points.
Or they might after tonight's game, because I think they're playing
do they play tonight?
They're playing tonight.
So it's possible they finish with 96 and miss.
Whatever the math.
Regardless, if they were in the Eastern Conference, they're in the playoffs.
Yes.
It was really the point I was getting at. So, yeah, one of those years for them that kind of sucks, because if they were in a different conference, they'd be in there. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
We both have Celebrini as our third.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a space between those top two names for me and Celebrini. And for me, there's even a little bit of a space between Celebrini and whoever the next person would be.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like, to me, I don't know who I would even consider for third place at this point. Like, Michikov, sure, and I had Will Smith as my winner in the beginning of the season. Like, he had a good season. He didn't have a great season. Like, but yeah, it's kind of funny how it kind of worked out to be Hudson Wolf clear 1-2, and then after that, I also think Hudson ends up winning it because he's younger. Like, I know that shouldn't matter, but he's younger with less pro experience.
Yes,
and I think that's going to drive some voters that way as well.
I think the fact that he's pretty much their top defenseman also helps. I know Wolf is the starting goaltender very clearly in Calgary, but there's probably a little bit of a bias here as well against goaltenders.
In Calgary in particular.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Dan Vladar is your guy. Norris Trophy. This one's tough.
It is. So let me start with this, because I want to say you were kind of with Makar for a while. I wasn't. I had him in my top 3. I am giving him the Norris this year. Defenseman scores 30 goals. That's kind of doesn't automatically hand it to him, but it pretty much does. And he's a very, very good defenseman. He is clearly one of the best in the league. I think he separated himself from who I have second, Werenski. And Quinn Hughes had a great season still, but the time that he missed is what kind of knocks him down for me. You have one more name. I want to let you bring him up.
Yes. Well, I got a couple names. I typed out one more here. So why I said that this is... So Makar is probably winning it for the pure production.
Yeah.
But I was looking at Natural Stat Trick earlier and kind of just playing around with like relative Corsi again, like who most improves their team when they're on the ice.
Yeah.
Werenski, Fox, Hughes, Rasmus Dahlin were all like head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah.
So, and this is not taking anything away from Makar either, but it was like, wow, there were some defensemen who actually had really, really strong play driving seasons.
Yep.
So even Adam Fox absolutely deserves votes again this year. Yep. I wanted to point out Rasmus Dahlin because he was one of the best play drivers in the entire league, at least versus when he's on the ice versus when he's off the ice. You mentioned Hughes missed a bunch of time and that knocks him down. Dahlin misses a bunch of time, the Sabres go on a 13-game losing streak while he's out, basically game for game that he misses. Like, if he plays almost an 82-game schedule, maybe the Sabres are in the playoffs and he's maybe a clear, first or second place, vote. Yeah. If that team's in the playoffs.
So I didn't want to say it before I let you run through that. Hughes and Dahlin, to me, it's the same issue, I guess, as far as voting for them to win the Norris.
And even Adam Fox.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, those two specifically for me, if they had played a full season, I think their numbers are good enough and defensively they are good enough that I could definitely justify voting them ahead of Makar. They just didn't.
Yeah,
And you can't really assume when you're voting on an award like this, you can't assume if Hughes played 15-ish more games. I don't remember exactly how many he missed, but you can't really assume it's not what happened.
yeah. And I think both them get knocked down a little bit. Adam Fox as well by their team's overall performance. Fair or not
Yes.
fair, but that's
Yeah.
kind of how. That's why I think Makar ultimately wins it, because best team, one of the best players on the best team.
Yep.
Werenski, if Columbus makes the playoffs, I still don't think he wins over Makar, but I think there's a little bit more of a discussion.
He probably gets more votes if
Yep.
they make the playoffs.
And I wonder if Lane Hudson gets some votes too.
He might. I'm sure he'll get
some. Yeah. Selke,
Yeah,
I think we know. So Barkov will probably win it.
Yep. Should be Reinhardt, which we've kind of been on that train for a while. I'm more interested in the other names that we listed here.
Yeah. So just like with defensemen, I was playing around with kind of which forwards improve their team's shot suppression, play control basically the best. And so I'm skipping a couple names, but 3 top names that came up for that: Alex Killorn from the Anaheim Ducks, Marcus Foligno from the Minnesota Wild, and Zach Benson from the Buffalo Sabres. Those 3 players were like head and shoulders above a lot of other really strong forwards as far as like defensive impacts go.
Yep.
Again, none of them are winning it, but if the Selke is truly like awarding the best defensive forward, which I know that's not 100% what it's going for, but if that's what we're trying to capture, those 3 deserve a lot of credit for that.
A bias that would pop up here is whether or not the player is a center.
Yep.
Pretty much always goes to a center, which is kind of the big Reinhardt issue that we have.
Yep.
So I had Reinhardt, then Barkov. I listed a third name, and I couldn't decide if he was actually my third or if he would be like my fourth or fifth. I more wanted to list it to acknowledge it. Matty Beniers.
I was not expecting to see his name appear anywhere in our prep sheet.
He pretty much became the two-way shutdown matchup center that he was expected to become this season. As bad as Seattle was, he's a bright spot for them. What happened this year with him and his impacts, if he continues that.
Probably should be paying more attention to Seattle, but I don't know. This year, I just wasn't paying enough attention to recognize his game, I guess.
Yeah.
And he didn't pop up in some of the other like metrics and stuff I was looking at. So, but I mean, as you said, he's probably not finishing top 3.
I highly doubt it. I don't even know if I would vote him top 3. I more just wanted to acknowledge that he's arrived per se.
So my other like legit prediction who I think might very well finish in the top 3 is Jack Eichel. Just like I had him up for the Hart Trophy. I think that he might get some Selke votes as well. I think his play at the Four Nations is going to help as well. It shouldn't factor in, but at the same point, I think it's going to factor in. I think Austin Matthews is also going to benefit from some of the play that he showed at the Four Nations, at least defensively, and potentially get some votes here.
Something interesting that probably no one actually cares about too much, but prior to the season when we did predictions, I had Eichel in my Selke voting and you did not.
Yep.
And mid-season, I took him out and you put him in. And you stuck with him. And like I took him out. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think he would be deserving. He is deserving of some votes for sure. Vezina?
I mean, Connor Hellebuyck's winning the award.
He is.
I mean, let's not even waste our time with 2 and 3 at this point.
Okay.
Connor Hellebuyck's winning the award.
Lady Bing.
Sticking with my Sean Monahan train, we'll rename the trophy the Johnny Gaudreau Trophy, and we'll give it to his good friend Sean Monahan. I've been on that train since the preseason, So I'm gonna just stick with it. And he's deserving of it too. It's not like he's not.
So to me, it's really like what exactly are people looking at with this award? Because it's sportsmanship, overall, just behavior. Like in that way, sure, some people want to get literal and say, well, how many penalty minutes did a guy have? So I tried to look at it in a sense of like a little bit of both. And as soon as I started to factor in penalty minutes, I had to toss Monahan's name out. I completely love the idea of changing the award to Goudreau. I think you still could. I think you could probably even find a Blue Jacket to give it to that isn't Monahan. Albeit, I like the idea of it's pretty much his best friend getting the award. So I'm not anti Monahan winning this award. I listed some other names to acknowledge that could win: Nick Suzuki, Braden Point, Kopitar, Jacob Slavin. All could win that, and I wouldn't be surprised. But again, like I guess the fan in me would be rooting for your choice of Monahan.
Yeah, frankly, I don't. Okay, I would care about the award if they went down the route that I've been pushing for since the preseason,
Yes,
and other people
right.
have been. But I don't really care about that award. I don't care
Neither.
about many of the awards, but that one I care the least about.
No, I
So
know it's kind of like okay, that guy won again most years, so it's not a one I care much about either. I would be more interested if it did go down the route of your choice.
So that brings us to, let's talk about the playoffs. I guess let's start with, just, we were talking before we recorded, just kind of some overall thoughts on just the teams, the matchups, the bracket, kind of how things stack up, and then we'll kind of get into breaking down the series is a little bit more. You've got some good numbers that we got to integrate in a little bit, maybe, hopefully. So, your thoughts overall on the playoffs? Maybe
Yeah.
let's start with the Eastern Conference, just kind of run down 1 through 8.
Well, so I guess the first thing I want to say, because I think you brought this up and I fully agree. Just taking a step back and looking at all the teams, the West seems a little bit stronger than the East.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't give away what we're thinking too much here as far as who's winning, but
Well, I'll put it this way. I think the West is, well, obviously, just point wise, the Western teams have more points
yeah.
than the East. Maybe a little more top heavy in the
Yeah.
West. I don't know if that's even
I,
fair to say, but
I guess between the two of us, we would both agree kind of our favorites, not necessarily our top pick, but even the second or third pick to win it all is probably coming from the West.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so kind of, I guess, diving into the East a little bit. Top team is Washington. So they found out kind of their first round matchup last. They're facing Montreal. Then we've got Toronto as the top team in the Atlantic. They face wild card 1. That's Ottawa. Fun little battle there, I guess. I'm looking in the Atlantic still. We've got the Battle of Florida, Tampa, and the Florida Panthers. And then moving up the East Coast a little bit, we've got the Carolina Hurricanes hosting the New Jersey Devils, which is also kind of a fun same division matchup. Should be some good rivalry games there. I like the matchups as far as a rivalry storyline point of view, other than I guess the Capitals and Canadians. That's a little less. But there's some things in each of these matchups I think that we can kind of look at and be like, okay, this could be fun to see.
Yeah, to me, the Atlantic kind of matchups, the Atlantic Division matchups, are the juicier ones, storyline, just talent wise as well. I we'll get into each matchup and each team a little bit more, but I think the stronger teams in this bracket, Washington's, we have maybe differing thoughts on Washington, but to me, the stronger teams in the Eastern Conference are all up in the Atlantic Division, at least as far as playoffs go. Um, and then like I don't know the Metro. My first comment to you is like I kind of feel like the Metro portion of the Eastern Conference bracket's a little bit weak. I don't like.
I would almost say I don't even know if I would use the word weak, but I would more just say overall, I think it's predictable. It's a little more predictable what's going to happen.
Eh, I mean, and yet we differ
Because
on.
there's some strong teams.
Yeah,
I think we're just able to come to a little bit or come to the conclusion a little quicker of them getting kicked out eventually.
yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just none of those teams don't inspire me as much this
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
I have the same feeling a little bit with the Pacific and the West transitioning over there. Like, and it's not that none of these teams like there are a lot of these teams that I'm lumping into this that had actually very good seasons.
Yeah.
It's just where they are right now that I have concerns about and or over the course of the season. And that's kind of just how the bracket played out. Like it's a little bit of the fault of the NHL doing 1 through 8, but it's just also like this is a season long basically
Yeah.
qualification, and teams at the end of the season have some things that we'll get into that are concerning. And just kind of where they ended up falling was they had really good starts to the season, so they still ended up falling in certain places, and just now doesn't shake out quite as well to me. But
Yeah.
so that's me alluding to the Pacific Division, the West, and then the Central Division. I mean, I don't think we're breaking any news, but there's 3 really good teams, and then St. Louis had a really good run at the end of the season
Yeah.
too.
Diving in to
Sure,
specific matchups a little bit.
you can decide where we start on this bracket.
Well, we started in the Eastern Conference, so let's go back there. And we'll just start at the top. So, well, I'm not going to start at the top. Let's start with Washington and Montreal. They're the top team in the East, Washington.
Yep.
So, starting there, to put it bluntly, I guess, I don't think Montreal has too much business being in the playoffs. At the same time, I think they could steal a couple games. Sam Montembeault, their goalie, has had a very good season. So I kind of wonder if he's able to steal a game or two. But beyond that, Montreal, their underlying numbers are brutal. Playing in Montreal as a visitor is not easy. That place gets crazy, crazy loud. So to me, I think maybe they can steal a game, but Washington has just been too good this year. Some of their underlying numbers aren't as good as other top teams, but they're still good. And all year they've just found a way to win. So this series to me leans pretty heavily in their favor and should be fairly easy for them. The one thing I would look at in this series that I could see them trying to kind of paint the story is, I guess, the NHL painting the story is you've got Ovechkin and then Demidov for Montreal. So it's kind of the old and new Russian elite scorer.
Yeah, I think Kucherov Demidov would have been an even better like story comparison. I think those are. I mean,
Stylistically,
those.
they are
Yeah,
much more similar.
yeah. That's not to say that it's not
Oh, yeah.
interesting to talk about, but
I'm more trying to just find something with that matchup, and that's kind of it.
yeah. My big concern with Montreal is maybe not goalie, but back end blue
Yes.
line for sure. Like we've talked enough about Wayne Hudson already. That's not well, that could be a concern, and as the playoffs physicality and everything picks up, I'm not here to say that he can't hold up, but
Yeah.
this is the first time he's going to be doing it as a smaller statue player. We'll see with that. I know Montreal's power play during the regular season wasn't great, at least
Yeah.
rank wise, but I think they could score some timely goals there if they get the opportunities.
Washington's penalty kill is very good.
Yeah.
That's the other issue there.
To me, Washington's just too solid top to bottom in a matchup against Montreal.
Yeah.
Like, Montreal's blue line's not great, and then their very bottom end of the lineup is fine, but they can't roll out the same level that Washington can.
Yeah. I fully agree. Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot else to say on that one other than it should pretty easily be Washington. If it's not a sweep, you're probably looking at a game or two that Montreal can steal.
It's very similar. Montreal is very similar to Washington last year in the playoffs, where probably shouldn't be here, got here. Now that you're playing with the big boys,
right?
Kind of comes out. I'll say Washington in 5.
Okay, I'd probably say the same. I'm going to jump out of. I mean that's a sort of split Atlantic Metro matchup, but I'm going to jump over to the other division winner, Toronto, hosting the Ottawa Senators. So this one, I guess, it gets a little bit more fun. So division matchup, 2 Canadian teams, a little bit more. So this is where I have an upset personally happening. I have Ottawa over Toronto. So I guess I'll kind of run through why. Toronto's underlying numbers are bad. For a playoff team, they are pretty bad. They are Craig Berube numbers.
They're Craig Berube special.
Yep.
They really are.
Ottawa's numbers are about average. Looking at the season matchup, Ottawa swept it. And I guess so when I look at the goaltending situation, I slightly lean towards Ottawa with Linus Ullmark. That said, I love Anthony Stolarz, who is likely going to be the one in net for Toronto. So there, it's very close to me. I look at Toronto, just kind of the classic, we all like to make fun of Toronto having trouble in the playoffs. I look at it as this is Brady Tkachuk's first playoffs. I have a feeling he's going to be running around crazy, hopefully not too crazy. Defensively, both teams kind of have similar issues of they have a strong top 4 and the bottom pair isn't great. So I really just come back to at 5-on-5, this matchup favors Ottawa. We saw it favor them in the regular season. And special teams, Toronto's slightly better, but they aren't way better. Ottawa's not really bad at anything. The PK is slightly below average, but about average. So if I'm trying to have some fun here with my bracket and I'm picking an upset, this is the one I probably feel most comfortable picking.
Yeah, I can't sit here and disagree a ton with that logic. I picked Toronto. My logic is kind of, well, they obviously had a great regular season in the standings.
Yes.
But I wouldn't say, outside of you kind of already highlighting Marner, I wouldn't say Tavares had a good season, a very, very good season as well. But like, I feel like I'll put it this way. I feel like past years, some of the Toronto players individually maybe overperformed in the regular season. And this year, I think they kind of underperformed individually at times in the regular season. So I'm going to say that maybe this year in the playoffs, the Austin Matthews of the world in particular, that's really who I'm alluding to, gets going and has a good playoff, and that should be enough to propel Toronto over Ottawa. Toronto to me has more top end talent.
Yep.
And I think for the first time they might be deep enough to at least get past Ottawa, who once you start getting to the last line, last pair for Ottawa, that's scary.
Yeah.
Very scary. Toronto, I'm not saying is great, but they can roll out 4 solid lines. Defense, we'll see, but it's really the forward lines that Toronto can keep coming at you for shift after shift. I don't know if Ottawa can do the same.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair. Oh, and maybe if 2 Canadian teams, it starts to get a little heated. Just a reminder of the Ridley Gregg and Morgan Riley situation. Maybe we see some fun fireworks between the 2 teams.
Maybe.
I'm sure we'll see a video package highlighting that event.
I'm sure there will be some fireworks because, as you said, Brady Tkachuk is going to be running around.
Yes.
With his head on fire.
Yep. Moving back down to the last first round matchup in the East, Carolina and New Jersey. I don't personally think this is going to be super easy for Carolina, but there is one very big key piece for New Jersey missing that makes it pretty easy for me to say Carolina wins this series, and it's Jack Hughes.
Yeah. Jack Hughes is healthy. I'm very torn on what to do in this series. No Jack Hughes. Yeah. I feel pretty confident that Carolina gets this done.
Should also point out Siegenthaler is out for the series, or believed to be out for the series for New Jersey.
Dougie Hamilton is back at least, so that's a plus, but yeah.
He also hasn't played in a while, so correct. Is there any type of cobwebs there? So yeah, it's going to be tough for New Jersey. I think kind of looking at how the 2 teams match up, New Jersey has some real respectable underlying numbers, but Carolina's kind of the standard of the league as far as that's concerned. Moving to special teams, Carolina has the best penalty kill. Their power play is bad. New Jersey's right up towards the top with the second best penalty kill and the third best power play. I guess those are all as of recording tonight. There's still some games to be played, so there could be a little shift. But basically, New Jersey special teams are at the top of the league. Does the Carolina penalty kill cancel out the New Jersey power play? Maybe.
Does just it being the playoffs and less penalties generally being called cancel that out?
So, like, how much of an impact would it have anyways? It's going to be tough for New Jersey without Hughes.
Again, that's where it really comes down to for I think both of us is if Jack Hughes is playing, I think we're really torn with him out. I think New Jersey still puts up a respectable series. Like, I don't think Carolina completely walks over them, but I just don't know how far New Jersey can push it. We never predicted games for how many games Toronto, Ottawa would go. We probably should do that. And
6.
You got Ottawa in 6. I'll go
7.
I'll go Ottawa Toronto in 6. And then here, I was going to say Carolina in 6.
Yeah, same. I will say, if you're a New Jersey Devils fan and you want a little bit of hope here, I'm going to give you some home and away splits. Or I guess I won't give you exact numbers, but New Jersey is fine at home, and they're good away. And remember, so Carolina's going to have 4 games home. So New Jersey would have to play more away in theory. Carolina's very good at home, but they're bad away. So if New Jersey's away success can steal a game or 2 from Carolina, and then going back home where Carolina's now the visitor and has performed a little bit poorly this year, maybe you could pull it off. But again, I have trouble seeing it with Hughes out.
Yeah. Last series in the East is back to the Atlantic. The Battle of Florida. To me, this is,
Yes.
I wouldn't say that there's two really juicy first round matchups. The way you kind of did the visual for this graphic, they're right across the bracket from each other, one in East, one in West.
Yep.
So the Battle of Florida, Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers Tampa Bay ended up as the 2 seed, which maybe ends up as consequential. I think Florida did put it in cruise control for a good portion of the end of the season, rested a lot of guys down the stretch. We'll see if that comes back to bite them. I guess before I go any farther, I'll let you go into a few of the numbers that you wanted to highlight.
I mean, really, main thing with Florida, underlying numbers, Corsi 4, expected goals 4, they're second in the league. So one of the best teams. Tampa Bay is a little bit more average, slightly above average. Tampa Bay also has the superior special teams, but like you mentioned, that doesn't always come into play as much in the playoffs. And both teams usually kind of dominate at home. For me, like this is a series that could very much come down to is one of the teams, especially Florida being the 3 seed, are they able to steal a game away from Tampa in Tampa? If they can do that, that could lead to them winning the series. Fun goalie matchup, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky. I think it's important, a couple of injury notes. Bjorkstrand is possibly going to be out for the series. That's kind of unclear right now. And Matthew Tkachuk is returning. Well, it's not official, but he's done a fairly poor job at not smiling when he's asked about if he's returning game 1. So he is likely back in the lineup.
I will say on that, like, I'm assuming he's probably healthy at this point, but if something is still lingering and
Yeah.
he's going to try and gut through it, like, he looked very, very bad trying to gut through it in the Four Nations.
Yes.
So there comes a point where maybe it's not worthwhile for him and he's actually a liability to his team to try to gut through it. But I'm assuming that with basically 6, 7, 8 weeks to heal, that he might be fine. It seemed like it was maybe like a muscle strain pull type thing and should be enough time to have healed up.
Yeah. All right. So for this matchup, I'll go ahead and say I lean slightly to the Florida Panthers, and I would say Florida in 7.
I'm going to go Florida in 6. I think that they kind of put it on cruise control for a good chunk of the end of the regular season. And now that the playoffs are here, I think that they know how to turn up the intensity at this point, and it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm gonna say Florida in 6. I think they are the better team, and I think they flip the switch back to on.
All right. Hopping over to the West. So we can start with the best team in the West. Best team in hockey, Winnipeg Jets. They are hosting St. Louis. This could be looked at as Hellebuck Binnington rematch from Four Nations. They were both 1-1 against each other. It could be looked at as the Shen versus Shen matchup if you care about two brothers facing each other. It should be a fairly easy series for Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past St. Louis to steal a game, especially because they're coming in hot. But this should be pretty easy for Hellebuck and a just phenomenal two-way team in the Jets. Interestingly enough, to me at least, when I was looking at the numbers, Winnipeg has the best power play in hockey, which you might not initially think when you think of Winnipeg. Overall, solid underlying numbers. St. Louis, underlying numbers not great. Have to remember early part of the season, they were so bad they fired their coach and hired Jim Montgomery. They're probably a little bit better than their underlying numbers say. I think they end up winning a game or two here. I don't think they really have a real shot. A couple things, or a few things, I guess. Dylan Holloway is supposedly not close to returning. He's week to week, so it's possible he misses the series. But on the flip side, I guess good for St. Louis, bad for Winnipeg. Gabe Vilardi might miss game one. He's a big part of their scoring and a really big part of their power play. And then Nikolai Ehlers is probably missing the whole series. So those are two big pieces. I wonder if St. Louis can go into game one and kind of set the tone a little bit. But overall, like I said, this should be Winnipeg fairly easily walking out of the series.
It felt like this year when Winnipeg needed to win games, they could win games. Like I know there was a point when Dallas was starting to get a little bit close to catching and passing them in the standings. Then they had a head-to-head matchup, and Winnipeg absolutely just shut the door on Dallas.
Yep.
St. Louis, it's the momentum. I don't love using that, but when you have the kind of finish of the season that they did, I think momentum's okay to use in this situation.
Yes.
I do wonder if that carries over or if they kind of used up all their emotional energy pushing to get to the playoffs. And now that it's here, and especially if they get behind early in the game
Yeah.
and series, wonder if that snow kind of spirals downwards real quick and they kind of revert to the team they were before going on that run. So I could see a sweep for Winnipeg. I could also see like 6 games, especially highlighting what you did with Winnipeg missing some key players early on. Maybe St. Louis can come out and steal an early one in Winnipeg and everything. So, and while we're on the topic, if Winnipeg's going to do a whiteout, please wear white jerseys at home.
Yes.
Well, while we're here, so I got to pencil St. Louis in for game one because Winnipeg will do a whiteout and wear their dark jerseys, and that should be an auto loss. So I'll say Winnipeg in 6, just for that reason.
I'll say Winnipeg in 5. I think it's one game, St. Louis right away, and then Winnipeg just shuts them down.
Yeah, it's fair.
Moving to the other favorite, or I guess division winner. Shouldn't say favorite.
No, probably shouldn't say favorite, but division winner.
Vegas Golden Knights up against the Minnesota Wild. So to be clear, that is Vegas hosting as the Pacific Division winner. Vegas, pretty much across the board, underlying numbers is clearly superior to Minnesota. Both teams have a bad penalty kill. Vegas has a great power play. Minnesota does not. I would say, looking at this matchup, one of the probably big things for Minnesota fans to hang their hat on is Kaprizov being healthy and back. That I think we can look at the underlying numbers and see that they're bad, and you could question how much would one player improve those, but at the end of the day, you have someone who was, before he got hurt, on track to potentially win the Hart Trophy or the Art Ross. That's phenomenal. That's huge to have him back in the lineup. So I don't think you can just cross off Minnesota as a wild card team with bad underlying numbers. I think you have to take them seriously if you're Vegas.
Especially the power play like rank that you alluded to, like with Kaprizov back, that like might have to throw where they finished out the window.
Right.
And because, as you said, he was unreal. So like earlier when I talked about like my rationale for Hellbuck being the Hart Trophy winner, someone like Kaprizov, if he had played the whole season, that's what I was talking about. Someone taking control and clearly stepping up. He was on pace to do that, and then he lost half of the season due to injury, basically.
The other thing I want to toss out there, Eric Sinek was out for a while too, and that's a big piece in their lineup at forward. Good two-way center. So And throughout the season, I remember there was a point it was like, who is even in the lineup for Minnesota? There were other injuries as well. So it seems like they're pretty much fully healthy. It could be a completely different team than the numbers would suggest.
And Minnesota just added Z Bouillon as
Yes.
well, and it was a while ago at this point. Like, it doesn't feel that long ago, but it feels very comparable to when Colorado added Cal McCarr for the playoff
Yeah.
run in his rookie season. That's the type of impact we could see here. And I mean,
It,
plus a healthy like forward
yeah.
lineup.
So I made a note about him and kind of what is his role going to be. He signed. There was a game where I think he signed and was able to play one game, but they scratched him, and it was a game that Minnesota needed to win to be comfortable in the standings. So to me, that's less about him. It's suggesting less about what his role could be for the playoffs and more that there was a must-win game. He's brand new to the team. Let's wait on testing him out in the lineup. I saw a note that he was in practice getting power play one time. I would assume a team that's about to be in the playoffs wouldn't just be randomly sticking their rookie defenseman on the power play one unit in practice if that wasn't something they were very much considering. So he could have a very big role in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, the
Especially like offensive zone starts, power play time, like his bread and butter get him in those situations.
Yeah, I don't want to read too much into the scratch, considering he also played 50 minutes in just a few days before in the
exactly, like it's that had
college.
nothing to do with him, like, and where his role is going to be.
Yeah,
It was more the situation that the team was in, that he was in.
Yep. So maybe a coincidence. I wouldn't say that there's any necessarily correlation there to how he's going to be used in the playoffs, but Minnesota's probably the most interesting. Like, they could be something entirely different than we saw the last 2 months of the season.
Yeah.
Which could be problems for Vegas because Minnesota at the beginning of the season when they were healthy, and that's not even adding in Bouillon, was really, really good. So the fact that Vegas kind of ends up with them in round one, probably don't feel great if you're Vegas, but you're also the Vegas Golden Knights, who have perennially been one of the best playoff teams since your inception.
Adin Hill is kind of becoming the clutch playoff goalie. And you did win a cup recently, and you've got guys there who have done it. So, yeah, it's, again, don't cross off Minnesota, or don't write them off, I should say, but it's probably a closer series than some people might think.
Yeah, I was going to say Vegas in 6.
I think that's where I'm at, too.
Yeah. I think when I was filling this out, gut reaction, like that's kind of how I went through. I just went through real quick gut reaction. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Vegas over Minnesota, easy. Now that we're sitting here talking about it, I don't feel as good about that matchup for Vegas by any means, but I'll still go Vegas in 6. I think the playoff experience and just the talent that they have top to bottom on their roster is going to be tough. And they should have a good blue line. And not that, and Minnesota's forward group has improved over the years, but that's still probably their weakness. So that could be an issue for the Wild.
Next matchup to talk about, we have the Dallas Stars hosting the Colorado Avalanche. This is a matchup that I think both of us view as having two of the top teams in the playoffs. One of them's got to go home, so I guess we will try and figure out which one that is. Goaltending matchup, Ottinger and Blackwood. Fun story, Mikko Rantanen is, after bouncing around the league a little bit, he's in Dallas. Big new long-term contract and his first playoff round is against his former team, Colorado Avalanche. Another really fun story for Colorado, and we don't really know what to expect yet, but Gabriel Landeskog seems like he will be on the roster at least for the playoffs. We'll see if he draws in game one, what kind of role he has. I would assume if he's in, it's more of a bottom six kind of defensive, just play a good defensive game kind of role, but just seeing him play will be awesome. Good story. And I guess kind of the one piece of bad news for this series, and it's for Dallas, is Heiskanen definitely not playing game one, it seems. And the rest of the series, it's kind of going to be a game time decision type of thing, or game day decision. It's very unknown. So he's probably, I don't know if I would say completely the same as what we were saying with Jack Hughes in New Jersey, but close. Like, that is a very, very big piece to be missing if you are a top team, is a Norris level defenseman.
Also, last night, so Wednesday night, seemed like Jason Robertson had some level of knee injury sustained in the game against Nashville. Don't necessarily, as we're recording this, we don't necessarily know the severity of that, but you add that onto everything else you just said, and I'm not going to say it's an impossible uphill climb for Dallas by any means, but
They might be missing their arguably two best players, and there's some probably very good just overall vibes going on with Colorado if Landeskog is back.
Yeah. I think Dallas not being able to get to the top of the division is going to hurt them more than maybe, I mean, obviously seeding matters, but kind of talked a little bit like Florida, Tampa, maybe it matters, but I think Dallas kind of falling one seed lower is going to be the difference between them having a chance at even a Stanley Cup run and potentially a first round exit.
Yeah. I think that kind of explains it, that matchup, quite honestly. I would say Colorado in 6.
I think I'm gonna go 7.
Okay.
Actually, no, 6. 6. I was thinking they close out on home ice, but so that means that they're gonna have to steal one in Dallas at some point in the series. So I'll go 6 as well. I think, to me, if Dallas has a chance, it's because Blackwood's shaky. I think that's Dallas's best chance is Colorado gets shaky goaltending again. And yeah, I mean, Ottinger is good, but playoff performances, recent history have not been great. So that's even a question there. Colorado's roster is just really good now.
It's very good.
And add Gabe Landeskog potentially to that, even in a probably a more reduced role, but still.
Yeah. Last matchup in the West Pacific Division, 2 and 3 seeds. So that would be Los Angeles Kings, Edmonton Oilers. This is an interesting matchup that I don't think either one of us would have thought we would need to give too much thought to at the beginning of the season. I think the Kings were just straight up better in the regular season than we thought they would be. I think we both had them making the playoffs.
No, we both had them missing the playoffs.
Beginning of the season, we both had them missing.
Yeah. We were not buying into Darcy Kemper.
Then we brought him in.
The big thing that we had in the beginning of the season is we weren't buying into Darcy Kemper, and I think we were concerned with their ability to score.
Yep.
Their forward group was not super inspiring. Quentin Byfield had a really good year. You had brought him up, I think, preseason for Selke.
Yeah.
That could be a legit conversation. He probably won't get a ton of votes, but yeah, their forward group, I think, shook out a little bit better. Their blue line's strong, and then Kemper's been a lot better than both of us expected.
Almost the exact opposite. Like pretty much the exact opposite. Looking at the matchup, so goalies Kemper, Skinner. Skinner was shaky a lot of the year.
He was also shaky a lot of last year in the regular season,
right.
And then had a good playoffs.
This is a matchup where, like, take both goalies regular season and in the playoffs, it could completely flip.
Yep.
For Edmonton, as far as injuries are concerned, this series, it's really Edmonton. Ekholm's out first round. That's a huge piece missing defensively for the Oilers. Trent Frederick is supposedly hopeful for game one, so it seems like that's going to be a coin flip. That matters, 3C. It's more Ekholm that is like the real concern here. Because they are missing Ekholm, I have the Kings winning this series.
I have Edmonton getting by. They still have McDavid. They still have Draisaitl. And I mean, Bouchard's probably going to miss Ekholm, but they still have Bouchard. They still have Ryan Nugent Hopkins. Like their top end players are just better, like significantly better than the Kings. I mean, the Kings have some forwards, especially that can match up and sometimes shut down top scorers. Philip Deneau historically has been really good at that. Anze Kopitar is a really good matchup center. But it's still McDavid, it's still Draisaitl, who, if McDavid can turn up a level from what we saw in the regular season, which I have a feeling might happen, it's gonna be tough for the Kings for me to kind of keep up with Edmonton's ability to score goals. So I'm leaning Edmonton. As you said, the Ekholm injury makes me feel a lot less good about that. But I'm going to lean Edmonton. I'm going to go in, I'll say 7 games. I think they get it done on home ice. Or, geez, I keep getting these mixed up. No, 6 games again. 6 games again. Again, finish it up on home ice. Sticking with that. But I don't feel great, just like you said. Like Trent Frederick, great if he plays, but Ekholm overshadows everything.
Yeah. That'll be the big story of the series, really, is if anything starts to go wrong for Edmonton, chances are it's going to be, okay, they're missing Ekholm. What's going on defensively? For me, I would say Kings in 7. I do think this will be a very close series. I think that the Kings having the higher seed is huge for them. They were absolutely phenomenal at home this season. So that's when it's all said and done, I think it's Kings in 7.
Yeah. I can't sit here and strongly disagree with that either. I don't know. For me it's McDavid just turns it up a level, and and that's too much for the Kings to be able to handle.
So that finishes out the first round. I want to run through our brackets as a just here's what we're predicting to happen. I'll go first. I'll let you end it and finish. So running through this, I'll start back in the Atlantic. So that Toronto and Ottawa matchup where I had Ottawa advancing, and then the Tampa, Florida, I had Florida advancing. So second round is the Senators against the Panthers. Panthers should win that. I will say in 6. And I want to point out that is the battle of the Tkachuk brothers. So I would be tuning into that series like for sure every game. So Panthers head to the Eastern Conference Final. Moving down to the bottom half of the East, I had Washington beating Montreal and Carolina beating New Jersey. I'm going to have Washington pull it off against Carolina in 6. which means an Eastern Conference final of the Florida Panthers and Washington Capitals, which to point out here, Washington would have the high seed. They will host 4 games at home. Capitals in 7. So they go to the Stanley Cup. Moving over to the West. So I had Winnipeg over the Blues and Colorado over Dallas. So that second round matchup of Winnipeg Colorado is going to go 7 games, and Colorado is going to pull it off. That is probably the matchup on this bracket that I look at and say, if the Stanley Cup was the 2 best teams in the playoffs, it's that second round matchup, the Jets and the Avalanche. Avalanche move ahead to Western Conference Final. Jumping down to the bottom half of the West, I have Vegas over Minnesota. I'm going to say that is in 6. And then I have the Kings over the Oilers. Did I say earlier how many games there? 7. So that one was 7. So that means second round is the Golden Knights and the Kings. I have the Kings pulling that off and making it to the Western Conference Final. That round, I will say, is a round of 7. So now that they're up against the Avalanche in the Western Conference Final, Kings can't quite do it. Avalanche advanced to the Stanley Cup in, I'm going to say, 5 games. I think the Kings kind of run out of energy there. So that means I have a Stanley Cup final of the Avalanche and the Capitals. Avalanche in 6. Stanley Cup champions. Landeskog gets to raise the cup right after a game he just finished playing in.
Well, I won't highlight mine. No look aheads here. So my first round in the Atlantic, Toronto, Ottawa. I said Toronto in 6 for this one. Then I had Panthers over the Lightning as well. I think I said 6. I'll go 6 again. Washington over Montreal in 5, and then Carolina over New Jersey in 6. So second round, Toronto, Florida. I don't think Leaf fans are going to be chanting we want Florida again by any means, because they're not going to want them. Panthers, I'll say in 6 again. I think Toronto can maybe eke out a couple, but I wouldn't be shocked if that even went 5. Brady Tkachuk once again rooting hard for his brother,
Yep.
even harder maybe this year because he gets knocked out by the Leafs. Washington, Carolina. I've liked a lot of what Washington's done this year. I've been on Carolina since the preseason, so I'm going to stay on them. I could be completely wrong here. I don't disagree. Like, this one's tough for me. This one's a coin flip. I'm going to go Carolina. I'm going to go 6 just because that's when they close it out at home. Steal 1 in Washington early on, maybe like game 2, and then basically just hold serve at home, get it done. Carolina, Florida. I've been on Carolina a lot this year. Thought they were one of the better teams. I don't think they're good enough to get past Florida, though. And I'll say I don't think they would be good enough to get past Tampa either if Tampa ends up winning that Battle of Florida first round. And I'm kind of assuming Tampa gets past Toronto as well there, or Ottawa. But I think the Battle of Florida is kind of who goes to the Stanley Cup Finals, because I think that as I kind of started the episode saying, I think the Atlantic Division teams are slightly stronger. Carolina goaltending not quite as strong, and just forward and defense just isn't quite as strong this year. So I'm going to say Florida in 5 games. Pretty handily handled Carolina. Out west, I had the Jets over the Blues, mostly because in 6 games, mostly because I don't have confidence in the Jets wearing white jerseys at home. They're going to play the Avalanche, who I had over Dallas in 6 games as well. I'm going to go Avalanche over Jets. I think the Avs a couple years ago somehow showed that they had Connor Hellebuyck's number, especially in the playoffs. I'm going to go Avs in 5.
Ooh.
I something about that a couple of years ago just I think they have his number,
Okay.
and they made him look ordinary, like the best goalie in the world look ordinary. And
Yeah.
I think that continues, especially given how strong the Avs are this year. So I had Vegas over Minnesota in 6, and then the Oilers over the Kings in 6 as well. This could, my prediction here could change if Matthias Ekholm's back, but I'm kind of working under the assumption he misses the entire playoffs. Basically. Maybe if they were to make the Stanley Cup Finals, he could be back, but it didn't sound hopeful. So I'm gonna go Vegas. I'm gonna go Vegas in 6 games. I think that no Ekholm's really the reason. I think maybe I flip that to Edmonton in 6 if Ekholm is playing in that series. So finishing out, Colorado, Vegas, Colorado in 5. I think that they're a much better team than Vegas is. I would be very interested in a healthy Oilers, healthy Avalanche matchup here.
Yeah.
That would be very intriguing. I just don't think we're going to get it, unfortunately. Avs, Panthers, just like you, I have the Colorado Avalanche lifting the cup. I will say in 6 games, I guess. I don't know who. I think Colorado probably had more points than Florida, so that'd be lifting it down in Sunrise.
I will check for you.
That impacts my prediction a little bit. I'm going to say Colorado closes out on home ice, whatever that ends up, 6 or 7 games.
Panthers had 98, and the Avalanche had 102.
So I'll go Colorado in 7. Just hold serve the entire series.
Okay.
And there we have it. Again, bound to be correct playoff predictions.
But not correct enough to go and bet on what we said. Please don't do that.
Yeah, I don't even think I'm going to bet on what I said either.
Same.
So I think overall, what we had kind of started the episode alluding to, we like 3 teams in this playoff bracket.
And the Capitals.
You like the Capitals. But
yes, 3 teams pretty much.
If I was going to put money, I would bet it, I would spread it maybe evenly across 3 teams. Unfortunately, those 3 teams, only one of them can even reach their conference final, and that's the Jets, Avalanche, and Stars.
Yep.
And that's very unfortunate because NHL seeding.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying with that. We both have the Jets and Avalanche going up against each other. That might be overall the best series.
And there's an argument Avs Stars first round could be the best or second best series.
Yeah. And there are some good stories either for sure or potentially, whether it's first round or moving into the second round. There could be a lot of interesting things happening. But that section of the bracket, that Central Division section, could be some of the best hockey we see this playoffs.
So we'll close out here. First round matchups, you're going to try to maybe carve out your schedule to watch games in.
Ooh.
I think Dallas, Colorado, we've kind of already alluded to, is probably one of them.
Yes. I would say this is tough. There's some good matchups. So I could talk myself into watching Vegas and Minnesota. I don't know if I'm for sure making sure I'm sitting on the couch ready to watch for that one.
Well, you're going to be, I think one of the games is starting at 11 p.m.
Oh, so. Wonderful. Probably not. Or well, I'll already be there from whatever game's before.
So it's how long you can fight off sleep.
Are my eyes still open? The Kings and Oilers, I think that could be a very good series worth watching. I would say the same thing about the Florida series, Tampa Bay Lightning and then the Panthers. I don't know. If Ottawa could actually pull it off like I'm predicting, that would end up being a very good series. So maybe I'm not watching game 1, but maybe by game 3, I'm like, I need to watch these ones. I don't care as much about Carolina, New Jersey, personally. That's probably one I am okay with missing. I feel like I have to say I'm watching the Washington-Montreal series since I picked Washington to
You don't have to say it.
Go to the Cup final. Well, I'm sure I'll catch those games, or a couple of them.
I think me personally, I'm trying to catch Dallas Colorado games, Leafs Senators, and Lightning Panthers, and then probably Wild Vegas. Like if I'm gonna try and pick if they're alternating nights with like the Kings Oilers, if I'm gonna pick a night to stay up, I might lean towards trying to see a few more of the Vegas Wild games.
Okay.
But that also might be driven by clients and everything as well, playing for certain teams here. But no, I think overall, as we talk through, Minnesota's intriguing. I think early on in the playoffs, I'm going to try and catch at least one or two of the Wild Vegas games to see if Minnesota can maybe hang with them. Then maybe I'll allocate my time to the other Pacific. But I think that's where we wrap up. Again, absolutely correct. Stanley Cup predictions are Colorado hosting the Cup, and that means that they're going to get swept by Dallas in the first round.
I'd be shocked.
Okay.
I would be very
shocked if they got swept, but we probably just curse them and they're probably losing in the first round to Dallas. Yeah. That's usually how things go with us. But anyways, we appreciate you listening. Max Stern Podcast available on pretty much all major podcast platforms. Content's available at AFP Analytics on X and Blue Sky. Be sure to give us a follow. All new podcast episodes will be posted from that account. So appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you next time.